Tease one of the darkest jokes in economic history. Tragedy may kill millions, but it almost never kills opportunity. The Black Death was no exception, between 1347 and 1351. The plague tore through Europe and North Africa with a violence humanity had never witnessed before. Entire towns vanished. Family bloodlines were erased from memory. Nearly half of Europe's population simply disappeared. But beneath this unimaginable loss, something else was happening quietly, almost invisibly. Wealth was being redistributed on a scale that makes modern recessions look trivial. Old elites collapsed, new fortunes took shape, and some of the most powerful dynasties in European history were born directly from catastrophe. It sounds almost obscene to say it, that in the middle of a pandemic that killed tens of millions, certain families walked away richer than ever. But that's the uncomfortable pattern of economic history. When a system breaks, someone always picks up the pieces. The Black Death didn't just break systems, it shattered them. The plague didn't only kill peasants, merchants, and craftsmen. It killed heirs. It cleared landowners. It wiped out banking competitors. It toppled noble lines that had ruled for centuries. And when old wealth loses its owners, new owners step forward. Not because they're villains, but because the incentives of a broken world make ambition irresistible. Welcome to American Life Guide, where money, power, and history collide, and nothing is ever as simple as it looks. To understand who actually got rich during the Black Death, you have to picture Europe at its moment of maximum vulnerability. Ships arriving at Genoa carrying dead sailors, monks writing that no bells rang because there was no one left to ring them, entire regions emptying overnight. And while most documentaries stop at the horror, this is where our story begins. Because the economic impact wasn't temporary, it was structural. The plague didn't just take lives, it took hierarchy with it. Labor shortages shattered the foundations of feudalism. Abandoned lands created massive property vacuums. Merchant networks collapsed and had to be rebuilt. Banks failed as unpaid debts piled up. And through every crack in this broken system, new winners emerged. The real question isn't whether people got rich. It's who and how. And to answer that, we need to follow a trail historians often ignore: inheritance, consolidation, power, and quiet opportunity in a world where half of Europe's competitors no longer existed. The first revelation is unsettling. Some of the most famous names in European history, names tied to art, banking, nobility, and empire, their rise to the economic vacuum created by the plague. Nowhere is this clearer than Florence. By the late 14th century, Florence was a city of survivors. Competitors had died. Trade networks were in ruins. Banking houses were barely holding on. And into this vacuum stepped a man named Giovanni de' Medici. He wasn't a noble. He wasn't a titan. He was simply a disciplined banker with impeccable timing. In 1397, just after another major wave of plague destabilized Florence's financial sector, Giovanni founded the Medici Bank. Older banking families, the Bardi, the Perazzi, were shadows of their former selves. Their heirs and partners wiped out by disease and debt. Giovanni filled the gap. Medici Bank secured lucrative contracts, including managing the finances of the papacy, an opportunity that likely wouldn't have existed had the plague not erased rival institutions. With fewer merchants and nobles left to compete, the Medici slid into positions of economic and civic leadership almost by default. Without the Black Death, the Medici might have remained just another successful Florentine family. Instead, they bankrolled the Renaissance, produced popes, ruled Tuscany, and reshaped global finance. You could argue carefully that Michelangelo's career owes something to the plague. Florence wasn't alone. In Milan, the Visconti family didn't just survive the Black Death, they exploited the vacuum it created. Noble families died without heirs at staggering rates. Their lands reverted upward or were seized outright. Bernabo Visconti absorbed estates at an unprecedented pace. His successor Gian Galeazzo Visconti combined. When aristocracies collapse all around you, becoming next in line isn't luck, it's probability. Across the English Channel, the plague created something entirely new: an upwardly mobile gentry class. Families without noble titles suddenly controlled enough land and wealth to influence national politics. The Paston family began as modest landowners in Norfolk. As neighboring estates lost heirs, they bought land at astonishing discounts or claimed it through legal maneuvering. Their rise, documented in the famous Past in Letters, reveals how demographic collapse fueled social mobility. They weren't alone. The de la Pole family rose through trade and plaguer land acquisition. The Neville family expanded their holdings during aristocratic vacancies and would later dominate the Wars of the Roses. The Stanley family climbed into power through land opportunities created by plague, deaths eventually becoming kingmakers at Bosworth, and then there were the winners nobody likes to talk about. In the Baltic, the Hanseatic League transformed chaos into profit. This network of merchant cities understood a brutal truth: scarcity drives prices. While others went bankrupt, Hanseatic merchants expanded fleets, monopolized timber and salt, and sold grain at massive markups to starving cities. They didn't rebuild Europe, they supplied it. Meanwhile, institutions that didn't die with their members quietly absorbed wealth. Monasteries and church orders became some of the largest landowners in Europe. Entire estates were donated in exchange for salvation. When families vanished, the church remained. In an age of mass death, eternity was a powerful investment. And then there were the ordinary people, the survivors. For the first time in centuries, labor had leverage. Wages rose. Serfs negotiated better terms or walked away entirely. Governments tried to cap wages, but laws couldn't defeat supply and demand. For a brief moment, medieval Europe experienced something radical: a working-class advantage, but the deepest lesson of the Black Death goes far beyond the Middle Ages. Wealth doesn't disappear and catastrophize, it moves. The same pattern appears in every major crisis. In 2008, distressed debt investors emerged stronger than ever. During COVID-19, billionaire wealth exploded while small businesses collapsed. The tools change, but the mechanism stays the same. Crises are not equalizers, they are accelerators. They reward liquidity, connections, and adaptability. They amplify existing advantages, and they create opportunity for those positioned to act, while others are simply trying to survive. The Black Death didn't just kill half of Europe, it reshuffled the deck of power. It set the stage for the Renaissance. It reshaped English politics. It strengthened northern trade empires. It transformed banking forever. The plague that seemed to end the world helped create the one that followed. The lesson isn't comforting, but it is clarifying. Disasters don't distribute wealth evenly, create moments of immense opportunity. Whether those moments become progress or exploitation depends entirely on who steps forward. History doesn't repeat, but if you don't understand how wealth behaves in crises, you'll never understand how power is built. If this gave you a new perspective, subscribe to American Life Guide. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.